Hey, what's up guys, it's Rob here from Harmony Music. In this video I'm going to show you how to play 3 very cool, very popular rock guitar riffs. Before we get into those, hit the like button on this video and subscribe to our channel as well because it really helps us out to keep making this content for you guys. So now let's check out riff number 1. Riff number 1, one of my absolute favourites, Highway to Hell by ACDC. Obviously not played on an acoustic guitar, the original song, but we're going to play this one on acoustic guitar for this lesson. So this one's a really handy riff to learn because it's nice and simple. It's only made up of 3 chords on the guitar. In fact, most ACDC songs are made up of 3 chords on the guitar, so pretty much any ACDC song is a good one to learn. But this is the one we're going to look at, and it's just 3 chords, nice and simple, with a little bit of a twist in the middle. So let's take a look at this one. It starts off on an A power chord, which is just the open A string, and then the 2nd fret on the D and G strings. So you're going to press down, if possible, try and press down on both of those 2 notes on the D and G strings with the same finger, and play the open A at the same time. And we only want to hit those 3 strings. We don't want to hit all of them. That won't sound right, so just try and hit just those 3 strings and hit that chord 3 times. Like that. Next, we go to a D chord. Now, I'm assuming that you already know how to play a D chord, but let's quickly look at it. We're going to play the open D string, and we're going to play the 2nd fret on the G, the 3rd fret on the B, and the 2nd fret on the high E. That is to play a normal D major chord. But for this song, we're going to change it up a little bit. And I'm assuming you also know that the high E string and the low E string, obviously they're both E, they are the same notes. So what we're going to do is, on the D chord, instead of taking the 2nd fret on the high E, we're actually going to take the 2nd fret on the low E in the middle of our D chord. So instead of playing this, what we're actually going to do is do something that sounds like this. So we're going to have to swap our fingers around a little bit. So I'd put your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G, and then put your 1st finger all the way up on the 2nd fret of the low E. And that is your technically still a D chord, or some people might even call it an F sharp over a D, because this low note up here is an F sharp. And we've added that on the low side of the chord, so it becomes an F sharp over a D. Like that. And we're going to play that chord twice. And immediately take your 2nd finger off and put it on the 3rd fret of the low E string, which is going to change it to a G chord. So let's recap what we've got so far. We played the A chord 3 times. Then we went to our D chord shape with the F sharp on the bottom, played it twice. And then took our 2nd finger off and put it on the 3rd fret of the low E string, which is a G note, which creates a G chord, and played that once and immediately stop it. This riff is very stop-starty as well. We don't want to leave everything carrying on, a bit like this. We don't want to do that. We want to stop it after we've played each little segment. Do that 2nd part again, 2 more times. Then play the D chord once, and then end on 2 A's. That's the entire riff. So we start on A, D, D, G, D, D, G again, and again, D, 2 A's. There we go, one of the best guitar riffs, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion as well. Really useful one to learn, so that's the first one on my list. Riff number 2, Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. This one's really cool because it's very repetitive, very iconic as well. And we can play this in 2 different ways. You might have noticed that I played it first in single notes, and then secondly I played it using power chords which follow the same notes as the single notes. So that's nice and easy to get your head around. So let's first look at the single notes. It's in the key of E, by the way, this one, and it starts on an E note, 7th fret this time, of your A string. That is our E root note for this phrase. So we're going to play that note again. And then we're going to play the 10th fret of the A string. So 2 E's, and then 1 10th fret up here, which is a G note. Back down to the E, 7th fret, 5th fret on the A, 3rd fret on the A, and then 2nd fret. All of this is played on the A string if you haven't already gathered. So let's quickly look at that again. 2 E's, so 2 7th frets, 10th fret, back to 7, 5, 3, 2. Now, we know the notes, but the next thing to take into consideration is the phrasing of those notes and how long you hold them for, because not every single note is the same length. Some of them are held a little bit longer to create the certain feel of the riff. So let's quickly look at that now. So the second E that I played, the second 7th fret note, is very quick in comparison to the first. And after we played that 10 straight back to 7. And then this 3rd fret here, we hold that one quite a while as well. And the same on the 2. A bit like that. So really pay attention to how long you're playing each note. If I played every single note the same length, it doesn't quite sound the same, so really pay attention to that. Next, I said we could play it also as a power chord. So again, we're going to follow those same root notes with our first finger, but we're going to play a power chord shape. So what we're going to do is 1 string down and 2 frets across from those root notes. We're just going to use either your little finger or your 3rd finger, whichever you feel most comfortable with, and play the riff exactly the same way, but keeping that shape with your hand. That's called a power chord. And all I'm going to do is just play those 2 strings. I'm not going to play all of them. That doesn't sound right. So once again, 7th fret with our first finger, and then I'm going to be on the 9th fret with my 3rd finger to create that power chord shape. So the next string down 2 frets up from the root note is your power chord, and just follow the same notes that we looked at a minute ago. Hold them for the same length of time as well. So that's a really cool riff for both of those reasons. You can play it as single notes as a bit of an exercise. If you do that, by the way, what I'd recommend is trying to at least swap these first notes from your first finger to maybe your little finger. And then you can either slide your first finger down or change your entire hand to make it a bit better to practice, and play the first few notes like this, swapping between your first finger and 4th finger. And after you've done that, then move your hand down here and play the 5 with your little finger, the 3 with your 2nd finger, and then the 2 with your first finger. A bit like this. And that's going to get more fingers involved, which is going to be really good, which is far better than doing this and just moving one finger up and down the fretboard, because that's just going to get one finger really good at playing it, but the rest aren't really going to get much practice, are they? So really focus on that as well. Try and use all fingers if possible, and try and play it as a power chord and single notes. The last riff that we're going to look at, nice and simple. Again, we're going to take that power chord shape that we just played up here for the White Stripes song, but we're going to move it all the way down to the 1st fret of the guitar on the low E string. So play exactly the same shape with your hand. So we're going to be on the 1st fret on the low E and the 3rd fret on the string below it, which is the A. And again, you can either use your 1st finger and 3rd finger, or 1st finger and 4th finger. I like to use my 1st and 4th to play power chords personally, but you might be different. So whatever you find most comfortable. And we're going to play that first power chord, move it up to the 3rd fret, play that twice, Move it back down to the 1st fret for once, and then once again on the 3rd fret. So 1, 2, 1, 1. Play that 4 times. Then we're going to do exactly the same thing on the same strings, but starting at the 3rd fret this time and moving it up to the 5th fret. Do that twice, and then do exactly the same thing again, but just bring it down to the next 2 strings. So this time on the A string and D string, still on the 3rd fret, up to the 5th fret, back down to the 3rd fret, up to the 5th. One of the most famous riffs in rock and roll. Let's do all of that again. So this one is going to be not necessarily tricky, but the things to watch out for in this riff is just making sure you're playing just the strings that you want to. So when you're playing your first power chord here, we only want to hit those 2 strings. We don't want this, because that sounds terrible. And make sure that after you've played each section, cut the noise. Again, don't do this. And leave it going. You want to stop it straight after it. It's going to be quite quick as well to be able to move this chord up and down, so it's going to be really good practice for your hand to move a chord but keep the shape of it. The way that I like to explain it to my students when they first start with power chords is imagine that your hand, or you are, an action figure. If you think of an action figure, their hands usually come in one sort of position and they can't really move it, they just stay like that. So I like to say to people, pretend that you're an action figure and that's how your hand stays. So when you move it about like that, you can't actually move that shape. What we don't want is this, where you start moving your hand and you're losing your shape like that. That's not going to be good for this, so try and keep your shape. And then again at the 3rd fret, and then on the next strings. So 2 things to watch out for: don't lose your shape with your hand, and don't play more strings than you need to. So that's riff number 3, You Really Got Me by the Kinks. So there you go, there is 3 very cool, very popular rock guitar riffs. Hope you've managed to play them, hope you enjoyed learning them as well. If you did enjoy this video, then like I said earlier, please like the video, subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and hopefully we will see you next time.